Good morning, traders, investors, and market watchers. You're listening to Market Before the Bell, your fast-moving morning briefing before Wall Street turns on the lights. It is Friday, July 17th, 2026. The screens are glowing red, technology stocks are under pressure, and investors are preparing for another potentially volatile trading session. So grab your coffee, check your charts, and turn up the volume. Here is everything you need to know before the opening bell. Let's begin with the overall market setup. The early market bias is neutral to slightly bearish, with a clear risk-off tone developing across U.S. equity futures. S&P 500 futures are down approximately 0.8%. Nasdaq-100 futures are taking the biggest hit, falling approximately 1.7%. Dow Jones futures are lower by around 0.5%. And Russell 2000 futures are also trading slightly lower. Technology and semiconductor stocks continue to weigh heavily on the broader market. The Nasdaq is facing the most significant pressure as investors reduce exposure to artificial intelligence stocks, chip makers, and other high-growth companies. Geopolitical tensions, higher oil prices, earnings reactions, and today's economic data are all contributing to cautious market sentiment. At the moment, futures are pointing toward a weaker opening, particularly for growth-oriented stocks. Now let's check the biggest pre-market movers. Starting with the winners, Elbit Systems is surging approximately 11%. The defense sector is showing relative strength this morning as geopolitical uncertainty increases interest in military and defense-related companies. Mass is gaining approximately 5%. Cummins is up around 4%, adding support to the industrial sector. Defense, energy, and selected industrial stocks are among the few areas showing meaningful strength before the opening bell. Now let's move to the losing side, where the biggest headline is Netflix. Netflix shares are falling approximately 10% in pre-market trading. The company reported earnings after yesterday's closing bell, but investors appear disappointed with its third-quarter outlook. This is another reminder that strong past results may not be enough when forward guidance fails to meet Wall Street's expectations. Netflix is also putting pressure on the broader communication services sector. Intuitive Surgical is down approximately 10% following its earnings report. Semiconductor stocks are also broadly lower. Nvidia, Intel, Broadcom, and Micron technology are all names to monitor closely as selling pressure continues across the chip industry. The artificial intelligence rally that powered the market higher is showing additional signs of losing momentum. That does not necessarily mean the long-term AI story is finished, but it does suggest investors are becoming more sensitive to valuations, expectations, and earnings guidance. Now let's review today's economic calendar. At 8:30 Eastern Time, investors receive housing starts, building permits, and import and export price data. Housing starts and building permits will provide an updated look at construction activity and the health of the housing market. Import and export prices may provide additional information about inflationary pressure coming through international trade. At 9:15 Eastern Time, the Federal Reserve will release industrial production and capacity utilization. Industrial production will help investors evaluate activity across factories, mines, and utilities. Capacity utilization will show how much of the country's available industrial capacity is currently being used. Then, at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, investors receive the preliminary University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report. This report will provide insight into how Americans feel about the economy, inflation, employment, and their personal financial outlooks. At 1 o'clock Eastern Time, the Baker Hughes rig count will provide another update on U.S. oil and gas drilling activity. The highest impact reports this morning are housing starts, industrial production, and consumer sentiment. Traders should carefully watch how stock futures, treasury yields, the dollar, and volatility react after each release. Now it's time for the earnings scoreboard. Netflix and Intuitive Surgical reported after yesterday's closing bell, and both stocks are trading sharply lower this morning. Netflix is receiving the most attention because of its disappointing forward outlook. Before today's opening bell, earnings reports include Fifth Third Bancorp, Truist Financial, and Travelers. These reports may influence financial stocks, regional banks, and the insurance sector. Investors will be watching credit quality, loan growth, deposit trends, insurance pricing, and management guidance. Let's move to the major market headlines. First, the AI-driven market rally continues to lose momentum as semiconductor stocks sell off. Second, Netflix is falling sharply following disappointing forward guidance. Third, tensions in the Middle East are helping support crude oil prices. And finally, investors remain focused on the combination of earnings season and incoming economic data. This mixture of corporate results, geopolitical uncertainty, and economic reports could create significant intraday volatility. Now let's check the macro dashboard. The 10-year U.S. Treasury yield is trading around 4.53%. Higher yields can create pressure for technology and growth stocks because future earnings become less valuable when interest rates remain elevated. The VIX Volatility Index is rising, indicating that traders are increasing their demand for market protection. The U.S. dollar index remains firm. West Texas Intermediate crude oil is trading above $81 per barrel, supported by geopolitical concerns.
Gold is trading near multi-month lows.
The combination of elevated Treasury yields, a firm dollar, rising volatility, and stronger oil prices is creating a difficult environment for high-growth technology companies. Looking at the sector picture, defense stocks are leading the market. Energy stocks are also showing strength as oil prices rise. Industrials are holding up better than the major technology sectors. On the weaker side, semiconductors and artificial intelligence hardware stocks remain under significant pressure. Communication services stocks are also struggling, primarily because of the sharp decline in Netflix. This morning's market leadership is defensive rather than aggressive. That tells us investors are currently prioritizing protection, cash flow, and geopolitical exposure over high valuation growth. For the AI and semiconductor watch list, keep Nvidia, Broadcom, Intel, Micron Technology, and Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing on your main screen. The early bias is cautious. Instead of immediately buying the dip, watch for stabilization after the opening volatility. Look for semiconductor stocks to hold their pre-market lows, recover important price levels, and attract strong trading volume. If these stocks continue breaking below their pre-market lows, selling pressure could accelerate across the broader technology sector. But if buyers step in and chip stocks begin reclaiming their pre-market highs, a strong short covering rebound may develop. Today's leveraged ETF watch list includes TQQQ, SOXL, SOXS, NVDL, and JNUG. If semiconductor weakness continues, the bearish semiconductor ETFs SOXS may benefit. If chip stocks reverse higher, SOXL and TQQQ could participate in the rebound. NVDL will provide leveraged exposure to Nvidia, but it can move very quickly in both directions. JNUG may react to movements in gold, Treasury yields, and the U.S. dollar. For all leveraged products, the pre-market low should be treated as initial support, while the pre-market high should be treated as initial resistance. Consider waiting 15 to 30 minutes after the opening bell for the market to establish direction before trading leveraged ETFs. These products can magnify both profits and losses, so strict risk management is essential. Here is today's focused watch list. Number 1, Nvidia. Number 2, Netflix. Number 3, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing. Number 4, the semiconductor ETF pair, SOXL and SOXS. And number 5, Elbit Systems. Before placing any trade, review the market's reaction to the 8:30 economic releases. Mark the pre-market high and pre-market low on your chart. Wait for confirmation after the opening volatility unless you are following a clearly defined opening strategy. Determine your entry price, stop-loss level, and profit target before entering the trade. Limit your total daily risk to a predetermined maximum, and avoid chasing a large opening gap without a clear setup and confirmation from volume. So here is your final market setup for Friday, July 17th. The market is preparing to open with a defensive and risk-off tone. Semiconductors, artificial intelligence stocks, and Netflix are weighing on the major indexes. Defense, energy, and industrial stocks are showing relative strength. Higher Treasury yields and rising volatility remain challenging for growth stocks. Today's combination of earnings reactions, economic reports, and geopolitical developments could produce elevated volatility throughout the trading session. Stay patient, watch the important levels, never chase the first move, and always protect your capital. This market briefing is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Always conduct your own research and trade according to your personal financial situation and risk tolerance. You've been listening to Market Before the Bell. I'm your morning market DJ, bringing you the biggest Wall Street stories before the opening bell. Have a focused and disciplined trading day, and I'll catch you on the next broadcast.